The white walls of the Galactic Council's research facility gleamed under the harsh artificial lights. Marcus Wells walked through the empty corridor, his footsteps echoing in the silence of the night shift. As the lead xenobiologist studying alien species, he often worked late, but tonight was different. He had found something in the database that shouldn't have been there. Marcus's fingers tightened around the data pad in his hand. 3 hours ago, while searching through old research files, he had stumbled upon a hidden folder. At first, he thought it was just another set of standard species analyses, but what he found inside made his blood run cold. The facility's computer hummed quietly as he entered his office and locked the door. His hand shook slightly as he connected his pad to the main terminal. The classified files were heavily encrypted, but Marcus had spent years working with the Council's systems. He knew their patterns, their weaknesses. Come on, he muttered, watching as the decryption program worked through the layers of security. A soft beep indicated success, and the files began to open one by one. The first document showed a detailed analysis of human physical capabilities compared to other species. Nothing unusual there. Humans were known to be somewhere in the middle of the galactic average. But as Marcus scrolled further, his eyes widened. The data wasn't about current capabilities. It was about potential. "This can't be right," he whispered, leaning closer to the screen. According to the files, humans possessed a unique genetic structure that allowed for rapid adaptation to extreme conditions. While other species took generations to adapt to new environments, humans could adjust within a single lifetime. A sound in the corridor made Marcus freeze. Footsteps, too many to be the regular security patrol. His heart began to race as he quickly initiated a data transfer to his secure server on Earth. The footsteps grew closer. Marcus glanced at the progress bar. 15% complete. The door handle rattled. He grabbed his backup drive and shoved it into his pocket. 30% complete. "Dr. Wells," a voice called from outside. "This is Security Chief Roberts. We need to speak with you immediately." Marcus recognized the name, but not the voice. 45% complete. "Just a moment," he called back, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm in the middle of some sensitive work." "This cannot wait, Doctor. Open the door now." 60% complete. Marcus's eyes darted around the room. The ventilation shaft was small, but he might fit. 75% complete. A loud bang made him jump. They were trying to break down the door. 85% complete. Marcus grabbed a chair and wedged it under the door handle. The banging grew louder. 95% complete. The doorframe began to crack. Marcus pulled out his personal communicator and typed a quick message to his contact on Earth. "Trust no one. The truth about us is bigger than we imagined." The transfer completed just as the door burst open. 3 security officers in black uniforms rushed in, weapons drawn. Behind them stood a tall figure Marcus had never seen before, definitely not human. "Dr. Marcus Wells," the alien said, its voice oddly melodious. "You have accessed restricted files. This is a serious violation of Council security protocols." Marcus backed away, his hand closing around the backup drive in his pocket. "I was doing my job, analyzing species data. If I accidentally accessed restricted files, I apologize." The alien's large eyes narrowed. "We both know this was no accident. The question is, how much did you see?" "Enough," Marcus said. In one swift motion, he grabbed his chair and threw it at the security officers. They ducked, giving him the split second he needed. He lunged for the ventilation shaft, pulling the grate free. Weapon fire sizzled past his head as he scrambled into the shaft. The metal was cold against his skin as he crawled forward, his breath echoing in the confined space. Behind him, he could hear shouting and the sound of boots on metal. The shaft branched in 3 directions. Marcus took the right path, remembering the facility's layout from his late-night wanderings. If he was right, this would lead to the emergency exit near the waste disposal unit. More weapon fire pierced the shaft behind him. the metal growing hot from the energy blasts. Marcus increased his speed, ignoring the pain in his knees and elbows. The shaft began to slope downward. He could see light ahead through another grate. Just as he reached it, the shaft behind him groaned. They were trying to collapse it. Marcus kicked the grate open and dropped into a dimly lit corridor. The waste disposal area was just ahead. Marcus ran, his lungs burning. He could hear the security team coordinating through the facility's communication system. They were sealing off all exits, but they didn't know about the maintenance airlock. It was used for disposing of hazardous materials, and Marcus had seen the maintenance crews use it during his research on bacterial samples. He reached the airlock and punched in the emergency override code. The outer door wouldn't open while the inner door was sealed, a basic safety protocol. But if he could trigger a waste disposal sequence. The security team's footsteps echoed from both directions now. Marcus's fingers flew over the control panel, initiating the disposal sequence. Warning lights began to flash. "Stop right there." A security officer appeared at the corridor's end, weapon raised. Marcus dove into the airlock just as the inner doors began to close. Energy bolts hit the closing door, leaving scorch marks on the metal. The disposal sequence was automated. In 30 seconds, the outer door would open. Through the small window, he could see the security team trying to override the sequence. The alien figure had joined them, its large eyes fixed on Marcus with an unreadable expression. 20 seconds, Marcus pulled out his communicator and sent one final message to Earth. "The Council fears us because we can change. Humanity's adaptability is not random. Look deeper." 10 seconds. The override warnings flashed on the control panel, but it was too late to stop the sequence. The outer door opened with a hiss of escaping air. Marcus was pulled out into space, the cold hitting him like a physical blow. His emergency suit activated automatically, a standard feature for all Council facility workers. He would have about 6 hours of air and heat. As he floated away from the facility, Marcus could see security ships launching. But in the debris field of the waste disposal area, their sensors would have trouble finding him. He pulled out a small device from his pocket, a personal beacon he had modified months ago, though he never thought he would need it. When activated, it would signal a small automated ship he had hidden in a nearby asteroid field. Just another piece of space junk to the facility sensors, but it was his ticket to freedom. As the beacon activated, Marcus looked back at the gleaming facility. The truth he had discovered would change everything. Humans weren't just another species in the vast galaxy. They were something else entirely, something that frightened the mighty Galactic Council enough to bury the truth in their most secure files. The small ship emerged from the asteroid field, moving on autopilot toward his position. As he waited for pickup, Marcus thought about the data he had managed to transmit to Earth. It wasn't complete, but it would be enough to start unraveling the Council's lies. They had called his discovery a security violation, but the real violation was hiding the truth about humanity's potential. And now that the truth was out, nothing in the galaxy would be the same. Admiral Jane Stone stared at the data stream flowing across her screen in the underground command center of Earth's Defense Force. Her eyes were tired from hours of reading, but she couldn't stop. The information Dr. Wells had transmitted before his disappearance was unlike anything she had seen before. "Run the simulation again," she ordered. The holographic display in the center of the room flickered to life, showing 2 soldiers in combat situations. One human, one alien. The difference wasn't in their strength or speed, it was in their endurance. The door slid open, and General Roberts walked in. "Any progress?" Jane nodded, pointing to the simulation. "Look at this. When faced with extreme conditions, the alien soldier's performance drops by 60% after 6 hours. The human, only 20% drop, even after 12 hours. "That's impossible," Roberts said, leaning closer to the display. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their weapons are better. Their ships are faster. But they can't last," Jane said, standing up. "Think about it. Every species in the Galactic Council evolved on perfect worlds. Ideal gravity, perfect atmosphere, stable climate. But humans? We evolved on a death world. She pulled up Earth's data. Extreme temperature variations, shifting gravity due to our moon's influence, constant climate changes, varying oxygen levels. We're the only species that had to adapt to survive. And we never stopped adapting. A red light began flashing on the main console. Jane rushed over, her heart racing. Multiple ships just appeared at the edge of our solar system. Council signatures. They're here for the data, Roberts said, already moving toward the communication panel. We need to alert our outer defenses. Wait, Jane held up her hand. Look at their formation. It's not an attack pattern. It's a containment grid. They're trying to block us in. The room's atmosphere grew tense as more ships appeared on the scanner. Earth's defense fleet was outnumbered 10-1, but Jane saw something in the data that gave her hope. General, remember the Titan mining rebellion? When our forces were trapped for 3 months in the underground tunnels. Roberts nodded slowly. The aliens thought they could wait us out. They didn't expect us to survive in those conditions. Exactly, Jane said, quickly typing commands into the console. We don't need to beat them in direct combat. We just need to outlast them. She opened a channel to all Earth defense ships. This is Admiral Stone. Implement Protocol Endurance. I repeat, Protocol Endurance. The defense ships began moving into position. Instead of forming a battle line, they spread out, each taking position near one of Earth's many orbital stations. The Council ships would have to split their forces to engage them all. They're launching fighters, the sensor operator announced. Jane watched as the alien ships broke formation, spreading out to cover more area. Just as she expected, they were trying to end this quickly. They didn't know that humans had turned their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. All stations, activate minimal power protocols, she ordered. Conserve everything except life support and basic defenses. Prepare for extended engagement. The first wave of alien fighters reached Earth's defense perimeter. Energy weapons flashed across space, but Earth's ships held their positions. Hours passed, and then something interesting began to happen. Admiral, the sensor operator called out. The alien fighters are rotating out. They're sending in fresh pilots. Jane smiled. But we're not. Our pilots are tired, yes, but they can keep going. They're trained for this. The battle continued through the night. Earth's forces took losses, but they maintained their positions. The alien ships had to constantly rotate their crews, losing time and energy in the process. 20 hours into the battle, Jane noticed the first crack in the alien strategy. Their attacks were becoming less coordinated, their formations less precise. The constant rotation of crews was creating gaps in their containment grid. They never considered this, she said to Roberts, who had stayed by her side throughout the battle. Their entire military doctrine is based on quick, decisive victories. They don't know how to handle an enemy that refuses to break. Message from the Council flagship, the communication officer announced. They're requesting a pause in combat for crew rest. The command center fell silent. In all of Earth's battles with alien forces, this had never happened before. The Council's military had always portrayed themselves as superior in every way. Jane opened a channel to the Council flagship. This is Admiral Stone. We will accept your request on one condition. You allow us to send you the data we received from Dr. Wells. There was a long pause before the reply came. You would share intelligence with us during a battle. Yes, Jane said, because once you see it, you'll understand why this fight is unnecessary. You've been afraid of us because you don't understand us. Let us show you the truth. Another pause, longer this time. Finally, the alien commander responded. Send your data. Jane transmitted the files Dr. Wells had discovered. As the Council ships received the data, their attack formations began to break up. Hours passed as they analyzed the information. Finally, a new message came through. The alien commander's voice sounded different now, almost respectful. "We have reviewed the data. It appears there has been a misunderstanding about human capabilities." "Not a misunderstanding," Jane corrected. "A fear. You saw our potential for adaptation and assumed we would become a threat. But adaptation doesn't mean conquest. It means survival." The alien commander was quiet for a moment. Perhaps we should discuss this further, without weapons." Jane looked at General Roberts, who nodded. "We agree," she said. "But first, tell us, where is Dr. Wells?" "He escaped," the commander admitted. "Our forces lost him in the asteroid field." "He is surprisingly resourceful." Jane couldn't help but smile. One human scientist had managed to evade the Council's best security forces. It was yet another example of human adaptability. "Then let's talk," she said, "about why you really fear us, and what we can do to change that fear into understanding." As the Council ships moved into peaceful formations, Jane looked at the battle display. Earth's forces were exhausted but unbroken. They had just proven something remarkable. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in having the best weapons or the fastest ships. Sometimes it's simply in being able to hold on longer than anyone thought possible. The truth about humanity's advantage was finally out in the open. They weren't the strongest or the most advanced species in the galaxy, but they were, without a doubt, the most enduring. And in the vast, harsh expanse of space, that might be the most important advantage of all. The emergency alarms blared through the colony's corridors as Commander Tom Reed ran towards the defense control room. New Eden, humanity's largest outer colony, was under attack. The peace talks with the Council had been a lie, a way to buy time while they planned their real move. "Status report," Tom shouted as he entered the control room. Screens showed multiple enemy ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel around the colony. "Sir, we've got Council ships appearing at all 7 human colonies," his second-in-command reported. "This isn't just an attack. It's an extermination attempt." Tom watched as the enemy ships moved into attack formation. They had learned from their previous encounter with Earth's forces. Instead of trying to overwhelm the colonies quickly, they were setting up for a long siege. "They think they figured us out," Tom said, a grim smile on his face. "They're prepared for our endurance this time, but they don't know about our other advantage." He opened a channel to all colonial defense forces. "This is Commander Reed. Implement defense pattern Echo. And remember, humans don't break. We adapt." The colonial ships moved out, but not in any formation the Council forces would recognize. Each ship chose its own path, its own targets. There was no clear pattern, no obvious strategy. "Sir," one of his officers called out, "the Council ships are trying to predict our movement patterns. Their targeting computers can't lock on." Tom nodded. "That's because there is no pattern. Every captain is making their own decisions, adapting to the situation as it changes. Show me the battle data from the other colonies." The screen shifted, showing 6 other battles raging across human space. At each colony, the human defenders were using different tactics, different strategies. No 2 battles looked the same. "They don't understand," Tom said, watching the confusion spread through the enemy fleet. "Every other species fights as a unified force. Their soldiers all think the same way, follow the same tactics. But humans," he gestured at the screens, "we're chaos in motion. Every soldier, every captain thinks differently. We don't just adapt our bodies. We adapt our minds, our strategies, our entire way of fighting." The Council ships were struggling to cope with the unpredictable human defense. Their sophisticated battle computers, designed to analyze and counter known tactics, were useless against an enemy that never did the same thing twice. Hours passed, and the battle grew more intense. The human defenders were tired, but they kept fighting. More importantly, they kept changing their tactics. When the Council ships adapted to one strategy, the humans would switch to something completely different. "Commander," An officer called out, "Look at Colony 4's defense pattern." Tom turned to see the human ships at Colony 4 flying directly at the enemy fleet, then cutting their engines and drifting, using the colony's gravity to slingshot around and attack from unexpected angles. It was insane, dangerous, and incredibly effective. "Copy that tactic," Tom ordered, "but do it differently. Make them think they know what's coming, then surprise them." New Eden's defenders adapted the tactic, but each ship did it in their own way. Some cut power completely, others maintained minimal thrust. Some fired as they drifted, others waited until they completed their slingshot maneuver. The Council ships couldn't cope. Their formations began to break as each human ship became an unpredictable threat. They had prepared for human endurance, but they hadn't prepared for human creativity. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Colony 6, his communication officer reported. "They've discovered something about the Council ship's shield frequency. It changes in a regular pattern." "Broadcast that to all ships," Tom ordered. "Let each captain figure out how to use that information their own way." Within minutes, the human ships began exploiting the shield pattern weakness, but each ship did it differently. Some timed their shots to hit when the shields were weakest. Others used the pattern to predict where the Council ships would move to reinforce their defenses. "Message from the Council flagship," the comm officer announced. They're asking how we're doing this. They want to know who's coordinating our attacks." Tom laughed. "Tell them the truth. Tell them nobody is coordinating anything. Tell them this is what happens when you push humans to their breaking point. We don't break, we evolve." The battle continued for 2 more days. The human defenders were exhausted. Their ships were damaged, but they kept fighting. More importantly, they kept adapting, kept changing, kept surprising the enemy. Finally, the Council ships began to retreat. Not just at New Eden, but at all 7 colonies. They had come prepared for a long siege against a stubborn enemy. Instead, they had found themselves fighting an enemy that became more unpredictable, more dangerous with each passing hour. As the enemy fleet jumped away from New Eden, Tom received messages from the other colonies. Despite heavy damage and casualties, all 7 colonies had held. More than that, they had each held in completely different ways. "Sir," his second-in-command said, "what do we do now?" "They'll be back, with new tactics, new strategies." Tom looked at the battle data from all 7 colonies. "Let them come. They still don't understand. They think they can learn from this defeat, develop countermeasures against the tactics we used. But by the time they come back..." He gestured at the screen showing the innovative tactics each colony had developed. "By the time they come back, we'll be doing something completely different. That's the real reason they fear us. Not just because we can endure, but because we can change. Every defeat makes us stronger. Every challenge makes us more creative." The emergency alarms finally fell silent. New Eden had survived, along with all the other colonies. But more than that, humanity had revealed another aspect of their true nature. They weren't just physically adaptable. Their minds, their tactics, their entire way of thinking could evolve to meet any challenge. As Tom looked out at the stars where the Council fleet had disappeared, he knew this wasn't over. The Council would be back, with new weapons, new tactics, new technologies. But that was fine, because by the time they returned, humanity would have changed again, evolved again, become something even more unexpected. That was the true power of humans. Not their strength, not their technology, not even their endurance. It was their ability to look at defeat, at impossible odds, at certain doom, and say, "We can adapt to this. We can overcome this. We can become something new." The Council had tried to break humanity's strongest colonies. Instead, they had only proven why humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy, because they were the only ones who sought every defeat as an opportunity to evolve. Lisa Cooper wiped the sweat from her forehead as she worked on the captured alien ship's engine. The Resistance base, hidden deep within an asteroid belt, was hot and cramped, but it was better than being in a Council prison camp. "How's it coming?" asked Bill, her assistant, holding a light over the complex machinery. Better than expected, Lisa said, studying the strange technology. These engines are perfect, too perfect. They're designed to work in ideal conditions. But what happens when conditions aren't ideal? She pulled out a small device she had built from salvaged parts. It looked ugly compared to the sleek alien technology. But that was the point. The Council's engineers would never think to look for something so crude. "Watch this," she said, attaching her device to the engine's power core. The alien ship's systems flickered for a moment, then stabilized. But now they were running at 30% more power than their original design. "How did you do that?" Bill asked, amazed. "The Council builds everything to be perfect, efficient, and safe," Lisa explained. "They never consider pushing their technology beyond its limits. Humans, we've been doing that since we invented the wheel." A warning alarm echoed through the base. Everyone froze, then moved quickly to their positions. A Council patrol was passing nearby. Lisa checked her monitors. The patrol consisted of 3 Council ships, standard search pattern. They had passed this area 6 times in the last month, never finding anything. The Resistance base's hiding spot was perfect, or rather, perfectly imperfect. "They're looking for a high-tech facility," Lisa said, watching the patrol. "Something that matches their standards. They can't imagine anyone operating in these conditions." The base had been built inside a hollow asteroid, using minimal power to avoid detection. The temperature control barely worked, the air was barely breathable, and everything was powered by jury-rigged systems that would make any Council engineer faint. But it worked. More than that, it was growing. What had started as one engineer's desperate attempt to survive had become a network of resistance cells across the galaxy. Humans who had escaped the Council's attack were gathering, adapting, and fighting back in ways the aliens never expected. "Message from Cell 7, the communications officer announced. "They've successfully modified another Council ship. That makes 12 this month." Lisa smiled. Each resistance cell operated differently, finding new ways to adapt and use Council technology. There was no central command, no standard procedure. Every group of humans solved problems in their own way. "Lisa," someone called from the doorway, "you need to see this. We just got a transmission from Earth's Defense Force." She followed them to the command center, where a message was playing on a battered view screen. Admiral Stone's face appeared, looking tired but determined. "To all resistance cells," the Admiral said, "we've discovered something important. The Council's neural interface technology, which they use to control their ships. It was designed for their perfect, unchanging minds. But human brains are different. We adapt, we form new neural pathways. And that makes us better at using their own technology than they are." Lisa's mind raced with possibilities. She had noticed that the captured ships responded better to human pilots, but she had assumed it was just their willingness to push the systems harder. "Keep gathering Council technology," Admiral Stone continued. "Keep modifying it, improving it. But most importantly, keep being unpredictable. The Council still thinks they're fighting a standard rebellion. They don't understand that every human resistance cell is different. Every group is finding new ways to fight back." The message ended, and Lisa turned to her team. "Get me everything we have on neural interfaces. If what the Admiral says is true, we can do more than just modify these ships. We can make them better than they've ever been." Over the next few weeks, the resistance cells shared information in their own chaotic way. Some used coded radio signals, others used modified Council communication systems. Some even used old-fashioned paper messages, knowing the Council would never expect such primitive technology. Lisa's team worked constantly, pushing the limits of what the Council's technology could do. They discovered that human neural patterns could indeed interface more deeply with the ship's systems, allowing for reactions and adjustments that the original designers had never imagined possible. "It's like the ships are learning with us," Lisa explained to a group of resistance fighters. "The Council designed them to be perfect for one specific purpose, But when connected to human minds, they can adapt to do things they were never meant to do. The resistance grew stronger. Small groups of modified ships began hitting Council targets across the galaxy. Each attack was different. Each group used different tactics. The Council's military, designed to fight organized armies, couldn't cope with an enemy that never did the same thing twice. Message from Cell 12. The communications officer called out one day. They found a way to hide ships inside gas giants. The Council's sensors can't penetrate the atmosphere properly. Cell 3 reports success with their gravity sling maneuver, another operator added. They're using unstable star systems to move ships faster than Council tracking can follow. Each success, each innovation, spread through the resistance network, but no cell used the information in exactly the same way. They all adapted it, changed it, improved it in their own unique ways. The Council's response was predictable. They increased patrols, added more sensors, improved their security protocols. But they were still thinking like the Council, looking for patterns, trying to develop perfect countermeasures to specific tactics. They didn't understand that they weren't fighting one resistance movement. They were fighting thousands of individual humans, each one thinking differently, each one finding new ways to use technology, each one adapting to whatever challenges the Council created. Look at this, Lisa said one day, showing her team a captured Council report. They're starting to fight each other. Some of their species are beginning to question why they're so afraid of us. They're seeing that we're not trying to conquer them. We're just refusing to be conquered. The resistance base had grown. What had started as a handful of survivors was now a thriving community. They lived in conditions that would horrify most Council species, but that was their strength. Every difficulty, every challenge, every near impossible situation just gave humans another chance to adapt, to improve, to evolve. Lisa looked at the modified Council ship she had been working on. Its once perfect systems were now a mix of alien technology and human innovation. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't perfect, but it could do things its original designers had never dreamed of. That was the true story of human resistance. Not fighting with superior numbers or technology, but with the one thing the Council couldn't understand or copy, the human ability to take whatever situation they found themselves in and find a way not just to survive, but to thrive. The small ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Its design was strange, part Council technology, part human modification, and part something else entirely. In the pilot's seat, Dr. Marcus Wells looked much older than when he had flooded the Council facility months ago. Earth Defense Control. This is Marcus Wells. He transmitted. Authorization code Alpha 7 Delta 9. I have the complete files, and we need to talk. Within minutes, he was surrounded by Earth defense ships. But they weren't there to attack. They were providing escort. As his ship approached Earth, Marcus looked at the data crystal in his hand. What he had found in his months of hiding would change everything. Admiral Stone was waiting in the secure underground facility when Marcus arrived. "You've been busy," she said, noting his worn appearance. "The files I sent before," Marcus said, placing the crystal on the table. They were just the beginning. The Council wasn't just hiding information about our adaptability. They were hiding the truth about where humans came from. The crystal projected a series of ancient star maps and genetic sequences. 200,000 years ago, there was another species, the predecessors. They were master genetic engineers, far more advanced than even the Council. They had a problem. They were too perfect. Marcus brought up more images, ancient ruins, DNA structures, technological remnants. The predecessors had evolved to such perfection that they couldn't adapt to any changes. When their environment shifted even slightly, they started dying out. They needed a solution. Us, Admiral Stone said quietly. Yes, Marcus nodded. They chose Earth, a harsh, constantly changing planet. They took the early hominids they found there and began engineering them. But not toward perfection, toward adaptability. He showed more data, complex genetic modifications, carefully designed to promote change rather than stability. They built into our DNA the ability to not just survive change, but to thrive on it, to become stronger with each challenge. But something went wrong. Stone asked. No, Marcus smiled. Something went right. The predecessors realized that pure genetic engineering wasn't enough. They needed to create beings that could adapt their minds, their societies, their entire way of thinking. So they did something unprecedented. They engineered randomness into our DNA. The display showed the unique patterns in human genetic code that made each person different, made each mind work in its own way. We weren't engineered to be perfect. We were engineered to be imperfect, to be diverse, to be constantly changing. Alarms suddenly blared through the facility. A large council fleet had appeared at the edge of the solar system. But this time, they weren't in attack formation. They followed me, Marcus said, but not to stop me. They need to hear this too. The council ships transmitted a request for a meeting, not with Earth's military leaders, but with Marcus himself. Admiral Stone agreed, but with conditions. The meeting would be broadcast to all human colonies and resistance cells. Hours later, Marcus stood in a neutral space station, facing the council's highest leaders. Billions of humans across the galaxy watched through secure channels. You know why I'm here, Marcus said to the council members. You've seen the proof in your own archives. The question is, why did you hide it? The council's chief speaker, a tall being with crystalline features, stepped forward. We found the predecessors' records centuries ago. We saw what they had created, a species engineered for chaos, for constant change. We were afraid. Afraid of what? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Afraid that you would become like them, the chief speaker said. The predecessors' own adaptability program eventually led to their extinction. They changed so much, so fast, that they lost their unity, their purpose. They evolved themselves out of existence. Marcus shook his head. You misunderstood their records. The predecessors didn't die out. They evolved. Not their bodies, but their consciousness. Those ruins you found. Empty, because they had evolved beyond physical form. He displayed more data from his crystal. But they left us behind for a reason. Not to follow their path, but to find our own. We're not evolving towards some perfect form. We're evolving to be able to handle whatever the universe throws at us. The council members studied the data in silence. Finally, the chief speaker said, "This changes everything we thought we knew about evolution, about progress. We sought perfection. You seek adaptation." Marcus finished. The ability to change, to grow, to become whatever we need to be. That's why your perfect weapons couldn't beat us. That's why your perfect strategies couldn't predict us. That's why your perfect technology works better when we modify it. Around the station, screens showed reactions from human colonies and resistance cells. People were beginning to understand their true nature, their true purpose. They weren't a failed experiment or a dangerous mutation. They were exactly what they were engineered to be, beings of infinite possibility. Your fear of us was based on a fundamental misunderstanding, Marcus continued. You thought chaos and change were dangerous. But in a universe that is itself constantly changing, the ability to adapt isn't just an advantage, it's essential. The council members conferred among themselves. When they turned back, there was a new look in their eyes, not fear, but curiosity. Perhaps, the chief speaker said, we have something to learn from you. Not how to be perfect, but how to be adaptable. Marcus looked at the data crystal one last time before handing it to the council. That's the final lesson the predecessors left for all of us. The universe doesn't reward perfection. It rewards those who can adapt, who can change, who can become whatever they need to be. As the meeting ended, Marcus knew this wasn't the end of the story. Humans would continue to adapt, to change, to evolve. But now they would do it openly, understanding their true nature and purpose. The council had feared them because they were engineered for chaos. But they had failed to understand that in a chaotic universe, the ability to embrace and thrive on chaos wasn't a weakness. It was the greatest strength of all. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the combined fleet moved into position. It was a sight that would have seemed impossible just months ago. Human ships flying alongside Council vessels, their crews working together to face a new challenge. All ships report ready. Commander Reed's voice came through the communication system. He was leading the converted Council ships, now enhanced with human modifications, and crewed by mixed teams of humans and aliens. The resistance cells are in position. Lisa Cooper added from her command post. The former resistance engineer had turned her skills to helping both humans and Council species improve their technology beyond its original limits. They were gathered for humanity's first joint mission with the Council, the exploration of a predecessor site discovered deep in uncharted space. But this wasn't just an archaeological expedition. It was a test of everything they had learned about working together. Remember, Admiral Stone broadcast to all ships, "We're not here to prove who's better. We're here to show how different approaches can work together. Council precision and human adaptability. Their perfect systems and our ability to improvise." The fleet moved forward as one, entering a region of space filled with strange energy patterns. The Council ship's sensors were more advanced, but the human crews were better at interpreting unusual readings. "Energy spike ahead," a Council officer reported. "Standard protocols suggest we should withdraw and analyze." Or Lisa suggested, "We could modify our shields to match the energy pattern. Let it flow through us instead of trying to block it." The Council ship's crews would never have considered such a risky move before. But they had learned from working with humans. Sometimes the best solution wasn't the safest or most perfect one. It was the one that adapted to the situation. They adjusted their shields based on Lisa's calculations. The energy waves passed through their fleet harmlessly, revealing something remarkable behind them. A massive structure floating in space, clearly of predecessor origin. "Look at the design," Dr. Wells said over the comm. He had joined the expedition as their expert on predecessor technology. "It's not perfect like Council architecture, or improvised like human construction. It's both at once, structured but adaptable." The combined fleet approached the structure carefully. Council scanners mapped every detail, while human intuition guided them toward the most promising entry points. They were doing together what neither species could have done alone. "We're picking up some kind of activation signal," Lisa reported. "The structure is responding to our presence." Ancient systems began to power up, responding not just to their technology, but to their presence. Human and Council species working together. Doors opened that had been sealed for millennia. "The predecessors left this for us to find," Dr. Wells said, studying the readings. "Not just for humans, not just for the Council, but for the moment when we learn to work together." Inside the structure, they found not just technology or knowledge, but a message. The predecessors had not abandoned the galaxy. They had given it time to grow, to learn, to evolve. They had engineered humans not to replace other species, but to help them break free from the limits of perfection. "Look at this," Lisa called out, examining a massive central chamber. "It's a shipyard, but like nothing we've ever seen. The designs, they're meant to combine Council precision with human adaptability." Admiral Stone watched as Council engineers and human technicians worked together, each bringing their own perspective to understanding the predecessor technology. The Council's perfect knowledge helped them understand the underlying principles, while human creativity helped them see new ways to use them. "We're receiving signals from across the galaxy," Commander Reed reported. "Other Council species are requesting to work with human crews. They want to learn how to adapt, how to think differently. And our people want to learn from them too," Stone added. "Their precision, their deep understanding of scientific principles, combined with our creativity, we can do things neither of us could do alone." Over the next few weeks, the combined fleet began to understand more of what the predecessors had left for them. It wasn't just technology, it was a way forward. a path that didn't require either perfect order or constant chaos, but a balance between the two. The predecessors didn't just engineer us to adapt, Dr. Wells explained during a joint briefing. They engineered us to help others adapt, to show that progress doesn't have to mean perfection. It can mean finding new ways to face challenges, new ways to grow. The Council's leadership, watching the success of the joint mission, began to change their centuries-old policies. They had sought to maintain perfect order in the galaxy, but now they saw the value of controlled chaos, of allowing for change and adaptation. "We're receiving requests from dozens of worlds," Lisa reported one day. "Both Council and independent species. They all want to learn about combining their technology with human modifications. And our colonies are asking for Council teachers," Commander Reed added. "Our people want to learn their techniques, their precision, their deep scientific understanding." Admiral Stone stood in the predecessor chamber, watching humans and aliens working side by side. Some were studying the ancient technology. Others were already building new ships based on the combined designs. But most importantly, they were all learning from each other. "This is what the predecessors wanted," she said to Dr. Wells. "Not for one approach to win over the other, but for us to understand that real strength comes from combining different ways of thinking." "Yes," Wells agreed. "They engineered us to be adaptable, but they left us where the Council would find us. They knew that someday we would help each other break free from our limitations, their perfect order, our constant chaos." A new ship rose from the ancient shipyard, the first of its kind. Built with Council precision, but capable of adapting like human vessels. Crewed by both species, combining their strengths. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't chaos. It was something new, something that could face whatever challenges the universe held. "Ready to test the new ship?" Lisa asked, her eyes bright with excitement. "Actually," Admiral Stone said, "I think test is the wrong word. We're not going to test it. We're going to let it show us what it can do, just like the predecessors did with humanity." The new ship launched into space, carrying with it the hopes of two very different approaches to life. But as it moved among the stars, it proved to be more than just a combination of human and Council technology. It was a symbol of what they could all become, not perfect, not chaotic, but adaptable. Ready to face whatever the future might bring, not with fear or rigid plans, but with the ability to change, to grow, to become whatever they needed to be. The galaxy entered a new era, not one of perfect order or constant change, but one where different approaches worked together, where adaptation and precision combined to create something greater than either could be alone. The predecessors' final gift hadn't been just to humanity. It had been to all species who were ready to learn that true evolution meant learning from each other.